Um, we'll be beginning shortly. Thank you everyone for your patience. We have our speaker with us. Uh, in a minute or two, we'll start with our session. Please be there for us. Okay, so I think it's time. We'll be starting our session. So, good day and a warm welcome to the latest session of Masterclass presented to you by EdTech Society. I am Ramdas Rai, your host for today's session, and I'm delighted to be joined by my wonderful co-host, Sonika Pal. Uh, I will join. Sonika, would you kindly introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hello everyone, I'm Sonika Pal and currently I'm pursuing my PhD in Education Technology and I'm in first year. I'm here to help you and if you have any kind of question, you have any kind of issues, let me know in your comments. I'm ready to help you. Thank you. Enjoy your session.
Thank you, Sonika. Before we proceed further, we are pleased to share with you that EdTech Society is currently offering memberships to individuals who are passionate about education technology. So that includes teachers, students, other professionals, researchers in the field. So if you are interested in becoming a part of our society, kindly check the link provided in the description of this video, or you can also visit the EdTech Society website. So for today's masterclass, in our eighth edition of masterclass, we will be exploring the world of Blender. Blender is a powerful software used for 3D modeling and animation. We are thrilled to be broadcasting this session live, and I hope that you find this session both informative and engaging. If you wish to receive a letter of participation for today's masterclass, kindly complete the form that will be shared in the chat box at a later point during the talk. Uh, I repeat this again. If you want a letter of participation, please be present during the talk, and at a later point, we will share a form. You have to fill that form in order to receive the certificate. Now, before we start the session, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest, Dr. Briju Thankachan. Uh, Dr. Briju is the Executive Director of EdTech Society. Uh, Dr. Briju, would you kindly take a moment to address our viewers and shed some light on EdTech Society? Uh,
Wonderful. Thank you, Ram. So I hope I'm audible. So welcome everyone, and I just want to thank you for Ram and the team working behind to make this event happening. There was a lot of work behind the scene to make this event happen. Thank you for your volunteer and service to the organization. So today I will be just briefly want to welcome you all to this EdTech Society. What is EdTech Society? EdTech Society, it's a professional non-profit organization started in India. So the individuals who are committed to improve teaching and learning through the use of technology. Sometimes, when I talk, the people will ask, who can join the tech society? I would say anyone who is interested, someone using the technology to improve the teaching and learning, they can join the organization. So basically the mission, the goal of the organization is to create a public forum between the researchers, practitioners, so then there are a lot of researches going on educational technology, educational technology organizations are there, but there is no place where they can come and share the knowledge and learn from each other. As an organization, we would love to see you all to be part of this organization, and we want to learn from you as well. So today, I'm again thrilled to hear the masterclass today, and every month we do offer masterclasses. So please do join, and these are the some of the goals of the organization. And you are also we are also planning for an international conference in November 2023. So please be tuned for those information as well. I am sure Ram will be sharing more information and other details about the tech society. And also you can go to our website etsociety.org, and also the LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn page, and also the WhatsApp group. So these are the two social media we are very active. So please do join if you are in WhatsApp. Join the WhatsApp group or join the LinkedIn profile. Thank you again for all of you joining, and we would like to see you next time. And thank you, Ram, and see you next masterclass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Briju, for explaining the vision and mission of our EdTech Society. Uh, Now it is time for our 8th edition of the masterclass. We have with us our speaker for today's session, Dr. Kapil Kadam. Uh, Dr. Kadam is an IITB alumni. He received his doctorate from the EdTech, Education Technology Department of IIT Bombay. He is also a founding member and executive member of the EdTech Society. He is currently working as an associate professor of computer science and engineering at KIT's College of Engineering, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, India. Uh, Dr. Kapil, now I will hand over the session to you, and I will request you to conduct the masterclass session for our viewers.
Thank you so much, Ram. Let me share my screen and take over from here. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. As Ram mentioned, that I'll be talking about Blender for 3D modeling and animation. So greetings from me for all the Blender enthusiasts, those who want to learn Blender, and even if you are a novice or a new person who wants to understand the 3D modeling or basics of animation, or just small demo of how Blender can be useful, learning animation. So before I begin, with Blender, actually, I would like to know. I mean, do you guys watch animation movies? Of course, you must have been watching. So if you watch animation movies, old or new or recent, doesn't matter. I would like to know what is your conception of the animation term. So could you quickly share with everyone on YouTube chat, that is, what is animation according to you? Let me see what you guys have to say. Yeah, I could see some of you are saying moving pictures. Great. It's a sequence of moving images, idea to action, 3D view. Wonderful. Anything that comes to your mind. You don't need to be technical. It is just every one of us must have been watching animation since our childhood to adulthood, and a lot of animation movies we have been watching. Cartoons. It is to animate object, person, to create a story. To create a story. Good. others perspective to see things. Computer made moving images, okay, moving pixels. So wonderful. Like these are few responses which talks about, moving something, moving images, moving pictures. Animation is giving life to dead puppet, okay. Then adding physics, giving life to pictures, absolutely correct. Illusion of movement, correct. So so what most common thing, if you everyone has observed in this, is movement of something, correct, moving something. So let me just show you some, from some of my previous workshops, when I used to ask my students or participants, whoever they are, what is animation according to them. So if you look at this particular Padlet, you will be amazed to see that most of these people have same opinion as you. It's a cartoon, moving images, creating virtual things, manipulation of figures, drawing that moves. It's an illusion of motion pictures, imaginary world, moving images. So the movement is something common in all of these definitions, and everyone is correct. Remember, everyone is correct. So we don't need to follow the exact definition of what animation means. So, but to give you a formal a thought on what is animation, what I can say based on the slide is, it's in its most basic form, animation is a change over the time. So whatever you have said, movement or motion, it's change over the time. It's basically, it's some kind of transformation, and these animations are typically divided into frames, which we call these units as a frames. So typical, the frame rate is 24 frames for every second of that time. Okay, that's a formal definition for understanding of our animation. So, what are the key objectives of today's talk or the masterclass? I'll be talking about Blender interface and some basics of 3D modeling. I'll be showing you a lot of key features of Blender. If you are new to start with Blender, I will also show you some tricks, basic tricks to create 3D models using some functions and modifiers. So, uh, so what is Blender? So by now everybody must have been knowing what is Blender, and so just to tell you quickly, it's a free or open source 3D CG content creation tool or animation tool or 3D modeling tool. It is available freely for your use, right? Just to quickly take you to the website of Blender, if you browse Blender website, you will be able to see the latest development that are happening in the Blender. Okay, you can contribute, you can learn, you can explore a lot of things in Blender. So if I say, you can download Blender for any of your operating system, correct. Whenever you want to try, you can simply download from this link. Then if you just check at the features, what you are able to see is Blender can be useful for modeling, sculpting, animation, rigging, story, for story artists, rendering, creating simulations, video editing, of course for VFX creation, right? So all these purposes you can use Blender for. Doesn't matter if you're a new person or an expert. All the industries have been using Blender for a lot of uh, their production process. Now, since we have just quickly looked at what is Blender, there are few things that you need to you must need for learning Blender. So one of them is definitely you need to have artistic perspective, or you need to be highly motivated, and then you need to install the Blender. Apart from that, having the keyboard with numpad, num keys, and the 3-button scroll mouse is one of the essential to get good hands on to the Blender. Even if you don't have these two, you can always emulate your numpad on your laptops. So yeah, that's how you can start learning the Blender. So let me quickly take you through the Blender. Okay, so here I can see I'm using Mac, so click on the Blender, you will be able to see this particular screen. This particular screen is called splash screen. What this number tells you about is the current version of the Blender. Okay, so here if you focus, you can create different new files, a general 2D animations, VFX, video editing, any other file. If you have been working on some sessions previously, you can recover your last session also. You can access recent files also. Okay, simply pressing escape will enable you to get through the splash screen. Now what you are able to first see is this particular area is known as a 3D viewport. Okay, and these are different layouts that you can work upon. The by default layout is simple general layout, then you have modeling layout, then you have sculpting layout, UV editing layout, texture paint, shading, animation layout, rendering layout, composition layout. So these are different purposes you can resolve within the single tool. Let me go to the general layout. So what you see at the bottom is timeline, which will be very useful when you'll be working with animation. So what I just did now is, clicked on this split area and I scroll it down so that I can resize these windows. Okay, so this particular area is a toolbar. Then on the right side, you will be able to see outliner, where you can access different objects directly, right? You can see camera, cube, light. I'll just talk about it within the 3D area. The right side panel is a properties window, where you will be able to find render settings, material settings, different modifiers, output patterns, right? So what all these things are there in the 3D viewport. So by default, what you are able to see is a 3D cube. What other objects I can see is, this is a camera. Simply click on that. Okay, this is light source, a lamp or a sun, correct? Now how I can, and this particular grid line is nothing but a 3D space or a 3D area. So anytime you can scroll and zoom in and zoom out to focus on this object. If I select this cube, you will be able to see this orange outline. Why I'm telling you all this? Because you will be doing a lot of 3D modeling once you start working on this. So let me get through the PPTs. Okay, this is I talked about. Okay, this is a 3D viewport I just mentioned. This is outliner to re-emphasize. Then this is properties window. Then this is a timeline. Okay, so together, if you able to see this default screen, you can figure out what all things are there in the 3D viewport. Now what all I can do here? So I can simply add different objects or delete different objects. Just let me enable shortcut. Okay, just give me a moment. Shortcut, then I'll keep it on center. Okay, so if I have to delete this cube, I can simply right click on it, or I can press X. If it is selected, I can delete it. Now how I can add different objects? So on the top menu, if you're able to see add option, you can add different objects to this 3D viewport. One of them is mesh, where you can add different geometrical shapes. You can see you can add plane, you can add cube, you can add circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, grid, and the monkey. Okay, so let me just add. Let me add the monkey. Okay. To navigate, you can simply click on the middle mouse and rotate your mouse so that you can do the 3D view navigation, right? So there are different ways you can observe this typical object. You can observe if you have done engineering drawing, or if you have done your house plans, there are like top, front, side views, and 3D views are there. So by pressing 1, you can see the front view. By pressing 3, you can go to the side view. Pressing 7 will enable you to view the object from top view. If you simply press 0, what you'll be able to see is a camera view. Okay. Now, if you want to view all the views together, using Mac, so Alt Control Q. After pressing Control Alt Q, I'll be able to see this multiple views together. Okay, so there are different transformations that we can perform in this object. So if you press G, and then you can drag and move these objects anywhere in the geometry. Now, if I want to move this object into particular direction, so these lines that you are able to see, green and red, these are axes. This red is x-axis and the green is y-axis. There is a z-axis that is not enabled right now, but you can always enable it from the properties window. Here you can see this gizmo where you can see the different axes. Accordingly, you can select the perspective. Fine. So let me try to move these objects along y direction. So I'll press G and Y so that I'll be able to move it in y direction. Escape will, break your action. Then you can move it to the Z direction by pressing G and Z. I hope you're able to see. Correct. Now let me show you the same thing in all 4 views. Okay, so here this is 3D view. I'll put GZ, correct? Then GX, GY. So this is about translation. So those students or the teachers who are working in computer graphics subjects, they'll be able to understand better in terms of software development, right? Here I can show you the other transformation. So for example, if I have to scale this object, I'll simply press S and I can scale in and scale out this 3D object. Okay. So if I have to do the scaling specific to any direction, say for example, towards x-axis, if I press SX, you'll be able to scale the object in X direction. Similarly, SZ, Z direction. Now the trick is, whenever you are scaling, keep your mouse cursor or the pointer near to object when you have to scale the object, scale outside. Okay. And if you want to reduce the size, move your pointer out, a little bit away so that it will be easier to scale out. Okay, fine. The another simple transformation is rotation of the object. Simply press R and you will be able to see the rotations. Okay. Again, if you want to have the rotation in with respect to particular axis, say Z axis, then R and Z combination will work. Correct. R and X combination will work. Then move your mouse. R and Y. So these are basic transformation that I wanted to show you. Fine. I'll get out of this window. I will delete this object. Okay. Now let me see what I have for you. So before getting into the 3D modeling demos, I want to take you through the final processes of this particular actions. Like rendering is one of the. Just give me a moment. What is happening? I'll just stop the camera so that. Okay. Yeah. So I want to take you through rendering. So what is rendering? Okay. So definitely we know it's an computer generated outcome or an image, which is a final outcome of any of the process. So to give you the technical understanding of the rendering, it's image synthesis, which is generating a photorealistic or a non-photorealistic images from 2D or a 3D model that we have been creating. and definitely it is by means of computer programs. So how does Blender do this rendering? So Blender has three render engines, inbuilt engines. One is Eevee, then Workbench, and Cycles. So if you look at these two images, this is a regular 3D model and this is a rendered image. You can simply see the differences between the quality of renders that it will produce. So Eevee will produce fast render, Cycle will take a little bit of time. Okay, I would like to show you the demo of it. Let me open the demo render file. Don't save. Okay, so this is a pre-created Blender file where I have set up a 3D scene where I have, put in this cube here. I have set up the camera. There is a light source. Now, whatever is visible in this particular camera view will get rendered. So to render, if you look at this panel menu, if you click on this render option and I click on render image, it will generate an output, correct? So that's what the difference between this initial 3D model and the rendered outcome. So definitely I must have applied some material to this object, so that's why it is looking red. Okay, so this is how you can create a lot of renders. The next concept is lighting. Definitely this concept is not new for all of us, but there are a lot of different lightings or bulbs we can add to any of the scene. So if you look at the pictures, there are different type of lights that you can see, different type of settings you can see. So what is lighting? So in computer graphics term, it refers to the simulation of light. Definitely it's not a real light, it's a simulation of light in computer graphics. Or if you want to consider this as a job of lighting in computer animation. Okay, so if I can show you, I'll just open a new file. Okay, so like I have been adding different objects, you can simply add and a light source. So here you can see there is a point light source, sunlight source, spotlight, or an area light. So any of this you can add. And the important part is any object or any light source you will be adding, it will get added at currently the center or wherever there this 3D cursor is. So by default the cursor is at center, so your any object that you will be adding will get added at the center. Okay, so let me remove this cube. So if you see, this is the light that has been added at the center. I'll delete this. So if I add anything else now, you may get bored or you may get irritated by every time selecting this option and adding this mesh. So you have to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts when you are learning Blender. So the keyboard shortcut to add any object is Shift A. Okay, so I just enabled the keystroke so that you guys can see what keys I'm pressing. So if I press Shift A, I can add any of the object. I'll move this object somewhere. I will add another mesh. I'll move it somewhere. I will add another mesh. Okay, I can view. So in any viewpoint you can add to have a specific location. I'm just moving around different views. Now on your numpad, if you press 2, you will be able to rotate the view like this in the upside direction. If you press 4, you will have horizontally left rotation of the view. 6, it is in the right horizontal direction. 8, It's upside down. Okay, so different ways you can actually work along with this 3D scene. Let me just delete this cube, this sphere, press X. Fine. So that was about lighting. Now, like I said, another concept called as a materials, the color that I added to the object. Materials are nothing but either texture mapping or a simulation of different types of material in real life. So material in Blender, you can, I can simply show you. I will add a cube, and if you look at here, let's go down on the properties panel. Can you see this material properties? So I'll click on the materials and I can simply add a new material. So here you can select different type of colors or textures or the patterns. Okay, so I'll change the base color to something, some random color, subsurface color, and then maybe I can, you know, I hope it is visible at your side. Okay, so let me just work on the same file. Yeah. So yeah, so these shading views you can change, and you can see the material that I have added. Okay, now the next part is why I showed you this rendering and material lighting in the beginning. Normally I show this demonstration at the end of the modeling demo, but the viewers should know what is expected at the end of their 3D modeling practices. Now, before getting into some basics of 3D modeling, I would like to show you a quick demo of a 3D model. Okay, so this is empty space. I will So what I'll create is I will create a vase in a Blender using some functions called extrude and box modeling technique, and I will add some subsurface scattering, right? Okay. Let me add a circle. Okay. Now to edit this particular object, I will be needing to move to the edit mode. So from the object mode, you move to edit mode, then you will be able to see these vertices. Okay, I'll talk about these terms just after this demo. So for better visual, I'll go to top view, but then I'll go to front view. What I'll do is I'll enable the four views, so that you can see the development of this 3D model. Okay, so a lot of these keyboard shortcuts I won't be able to discuss right now. It takes a time which we can discuss in one of the upcoming workshops that I'll be conducting for EdTech Society members. Okay, so here what I can see is I want to create a vase out of this circle. I will use, I'll press E to extrude, then Z to extrude this circle in Z direction. I'll press S to scale it outwards a little bit. Okay, I'll keep repeating this extrusion in Z direction and scaling till I get some desired shape. Okay, I hope you guys are following it. Maybe I'll just choose this part. Okay, EZ, scale a little bit, EZ, scale upwards, EZ, move upwards, scale inwards, EZ, move upwards. EZ, scale, move, then scale outward. So what I am able to see is some kind of a object. I'll go to object mode. Now the important part is I'll be adding using a modifier. So if you look at this property panel, the spanner symbol is nothing but a modifier properties. I will also explain this later on. So I'll click on this, I will add modifier, I'll look for the subdivision surface. Subdivision surface I have selected. So what has happened? Okay, the surface has been divided into more surfaces. So if I click on this levels, you will be able to see more smoother surface. Correct? That's what you can play with the subdivision surface. So now what I'll do is I'll go to single view. So anytime if you want to edit this object, you can go to edit mode. Now the important part is if you want to see the geometry of this object, you can always look the wireframe mode. So if I press Z, you will be able to see which mode you want to see, either rendered mode, either material preview, or wireframe. So if I click on wireframe, you will be able to see the wireframe of the 3D object. Correct? In the front view, this is how it looks like. In the top view, it looks like this. Okay. So again, if you press Shift Z, you don't need to use other features. So let me be in a wireframe mode and I'll enter into edit mode. What I can do is I will add some loop cut by pressing Ctrl R, so that it will allow me to change the some shape. Okay, so you can see that I have changed the shape. See, the Control Z is the key, universal key for undo, and Control Shift Z is for redo. Okay, so this is a random vase kind of object that I tried to create to show you the quick demo. Now this is just to motivate you that you guys can simply do a lot of 3D modeling easily. But before that, let us try to understand some concepts and terms in 3D modeling. Okay, one of them is edit mode. Okay, so edit mode, like I have shown you here, I'll delete this, I will add cube so that it will be easier for your understanding. If I press tab, I'll be able to enter into edit mode. So on the top left, you will be able to see the vertex select mode or edge select mode or face select mode. Okay, so now what are these? So before I tell you what these concepts are, just let me tell you what is modeling. Okay, so modeling is nothing but a process of making 3D mesh. So you can see in the picture, from making a drawing to entirely a lifelike model, like you have been saying, this process of creating this 3D mesh is a modeling. And what is model? Definitely it refers to a 3D object that has been produced through 3D modeling process. It can have 3D form, textures, it may look real like object. Correct? Then the mesh is nothing but a actual 3D data of that particular object, which will define the shape of that 3D object. We can call it as a polyhedral object. Now, what makes these mesh or 3D models? Very basic geometrical things. Vertices, edge, which is made of vertices, then faces. Faces can be triangles or polygons. Correct? So in particular 3D mesh, you can observe this has been made by different polygons or triangles. Now what these polygons are? These polygons can be made of triangles, these can be quads, n-gons, and or f-gons. So any 3D model is made up of these polygons. Now the important term for 3D modelers is polygon count. So how many polygons this particular 3D model has. So you need to understand this, because sometimes the more geometry that you have, uh, the more heavier model will become, and it will cause a lot of more time for rendering and other processing. Okay, so it is nothing but the number of polygons that any particular character or a model that has. So any polygon can be broken down into triangles. The more correct term could be a triangle count. So Blender typically uses face count, right? And that face count is, you typically have a chord which is typically can be divided into two triangles. The another important term is a normal mesh. Okay, this is a normal mesh that we have seen. Smoothing the mesh. So when I apply some smooth effect to this, so basically it will, smoothes the light between these different vertices. Now, but this is not giving you the desired effect. As we have seen in a vase modeling, you can actually subdivide these surfaces so that it will give more smooth effect. Correct. Then combining both the mesh and subdivision surface, we can get more smooth effect. Okay. The important point to note here is every model that we seen is hollow in a nature. Okay, there is nothing solid inside the model. Okay, so enough of this basic concept, so you will be able to see a lot of 3D geometry and objects. Now I'll talk about some terms that are required for modeling. The first is extrusion in a 3D modeling. Okay, so extrusion is nothing but you can simply create or extrude or move the part of the object and create a model. Okay, so in Blender, you have to enter into edit mode. You can press E, and with respect to any of the axes, like we have seen in the demo, you can, when you move the mouse, you are able to extrude these geometries. Okay, the another typical term that you will be hearing is box modeling. So this is one of the modeling techniques. Now, why it is called as a box modeling? Because we know there are a lot of 3D primitives like cube, sphere, right? A lot of 3D primitives are the cylinder. So what this box modeling does is it uses any of the primitive shapes such as box, cylinder, sphere, and uses this shape to create a final model. So like you can see in the picture, these 3D models can be created using a 3D objects. I can show you a small demo of how we can create a chair or a table kind of object. Okay, again, that vase model is also created through primitive shapes. The another important term is loop cut. So any shape can be divided or split into different faces by using this particular function. When you are in edit mode, you can use Control R to perform this operation. You can also yeah, this is okay. You can also subdivide any of the geometry into different parts. We can also have a bevel tool which can smoothen your edges of the objects, like you can see here in this particular picture. I can show the demo of this thing. So let me first show you the extrusion. So what I'll do is I'll select the face select mode so that I can select any of these faces. Okay, before that, if you have in the vertex select mode, if you click on any of these vertexes, you are able to select the vertex. To have multiple selection, press shift and click on that particular vertices. Now you must have been thinking how I can play around with these vertices. So if any vertices is selected, you can simply press G for translation and move your mouse. You are able to deform the geometry. Okay, if you have multiple vertices selected and if you're pressing G, you can play around with. So I can show you in a multiple views. See, this is how you can play with the geometry. Okay, deformations you can do. You can also animate these things later on if you require. Then another important part is you can go to edge select mode, and here you can simply see I can select any particular edge. Okay, similarly I can select the faces of the object. Correct. Now let us go back to the extrude part of it. So as we have seen in the vase modeling, if you simply press E, if this blue line appears, then the direction is there, and you can move your mouse and you can extrude this particular face. So keep doing that, select any random face, practice this extrusion. Once you're familiar with this, you can, try to create a lot of nice models based on your modeling skills, which will only come after a lot of practice. Okay, fine. So this is random extrusion that I'm trying to show you. Let me undo it. Now what if I want to make more cuts to this particular 3D model? I'll use Control R, which will give me these loops within the geometry. So you see the yellow line. So wherever you put your mouse, that particular shape will have this loop. So for example, if I click on here, now I can move. Okay, just escape and do undo. What I can do is multiple views I'll enable so that you can easily view this. See, there are a lot of shortcuts and functions I'm using. You guys might not be familiar with it because in this short span of time I can not teach you all the shortcuts. Okay, so let me add Control R, loop. Okay, I hope you're able to see it in different views. Okay, the wireframe mode, Control R, able to see this. Okay, so this is how I can add the loop. So more number of geometry I have been added. Now what if I have to add more loops, more than one loop? So after you press Control R, if you press any number on the keypad like 3, it will create 3 loops. Okay, this is very interesting feature that you can explore more. Escape is undo. uh, Fine. Otherwise, if you press Control R and then you simply scroll your mouse, you'll be able to see lot of loops. Correct? Okay. So now let me show you something interesting by using this few functions that we learned. So what I'll use is some extrusion, some scaling, and yeah, loop cut. Using this function, let me create some object out of it. So let me see if I'm in right direction. What I'll do is I'll select the entire thing by pressing A. I'll press S and Z so that I can scale down to make a flat object like this. Now since I am on a top view, what I want to do is I want to create loops. So I'll create 2 loops here. Click, and then I'll scale towards Y direction so that I'll get nice shape. You can observe this here. Okay. Similarly, I'll Control R in X direction. Okay, Control Escape, Control Z, Control R in this direction. I'll have 2 loops. Enter S in X direction. Now, if you are able to see here, I can get more faces here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, first I'll try to create, I'll select this one face. shift another face, another face. This is a bottom. Okay, now I'll use extrude, and you can simply see that I'm able to create some legs. And then to create a back support, I'll select this particular faces, extrude in Z direction. Okay, so this is a very basic box modeling technique to create a chair. So if you don't create this shape, this will become a stool. And then you can keep adding any features based on your requirement. You can keep adding loops, keep adding geometry. Yeah, that's what is all about the box modeling. I'll just go back and I'll delete this chair. Now I'll talk about bevel. So go to edit mode. You will be able to see a lot of operations here. Find out the bevel function. If you click on that, you will be able to see the yellow uh, marker comes in. If you just click on that and move inside out, you'll be able to see some geometry transformations are happening, deformations are happening. Okay, so I'll settle down it here. I'll do it one more time. Okay, smoothly. So you can see I'm able to get the bevel effect here. Okay, so you can try out with other effects also. So that was about bevel tool. Now let's see what I have. So there are a lot of other things we can do. We use some of the modifiers. I'll quickly show you demo of couple of modifiers, and then we can stop after that. So what is modifier? Okay, so modifier in Blender is nothing but an automatic operations that affect the geometry of a particular object in a non-destructive way. So using this modifier, we can perform a lot of deformations, and specifically for not deformation, modeling, you know, and other effects that we can see. So let me take you through some of the modifiers, which is one of them is solidify modifiers, then mirror modifier, then screw modifier. Okay, and we have used the subdivision surface modifier. So let me show you some demonstration of these modifier. So where you will be able to find the modifier. So when you add any object over here by pressing shift A, okay, suppose I have added a cube, and on the very right, the properties, you will be able to see this banner. Okay, if you click on that, you will be able to see modifier. So there is a huge list of modifiers for modifying, for generating geometry, for deforming geometry, or there are physics modifier. So let me see what happens if I apply a subdivision surface to this cube. What has happened? The cube looks like a ball, okay, or a sphere. If you add more viewport levels, this looks like a sphere. Isn't it amazing? But if you go to edit mode, you will be able to see the geometry remains the same. So here, if I add some loop cuts, and if I move that loop, you can see the transformation that are happening to the cube. Okay, right? Control Z. These are the changes that you can observe. Now, the solidify modifier, what I can do is I'll enter into edit mode. I'll delete one of the face X and delete face. Okay, so you can see the hollow geometry. I will select the entire thing. I will add modifier known as, where can I find Boolean decimate geometry? Can you see solidify? Okay, this is a solidify modifier. I'll click on that. So you might not be able to see here, but if I change the thickness here, can you see the transformation that is happening on the object? Correct? Something is happening. Okay, so you'll be able to see the deformation happening. The thickness is changing. Okay, so this is how you can add the thickness to your geometry. If I change the offset, you can play around with these features. I'll make the thickness even. Okay, let me just add it one more time. Cube, edit mode, select face, delete face, select entire thing, add modifier, solidify. Correct? You can see you can add a thickness. So we can simply add thickness to the vase that we had created. Okay, you can create a lot of shapes. If I select this base, I can scale down and okay, that was a solidify modifier. Yeah. So this is what I have to show you about the basic 3D modeling and what Blender is capable of doing. So let me just take you through some of the outcomes of certain Blender workshops that has been uh, made by students. So if you're able to see here on this particular Padlet, these are the submission of participants of some of the previous workshops. So they have posted their outcomes, 3D models or 3D models or simple animations. Okay, I'll just play any of this thing and we can see. So some student have created a plane out of it. Okay, he or she must have used a box modeling. Then let me see what the next post talks about. An interesting animation. Then you can see a car 3D model, a dog. Some of them they must have used or developed. Okay, so you can browse through these and take a look at. And if you guys are Etsy members, you can always register for a free 3D animation and Blender workshop where I'll be teaching you or taking you through some of these interesting things. I tried to give overview of the basic modeling. Okay, yeah. So this is from me, guys, for today. Thank you so much for attending this masterclass. It was rather more of a demonstration of simple functions of Blender. So I try to create more awareness among the students who are interested in working in Blender. And during the workshop, we talk more about these things. So you can always log into Etsy Society today. So I request Ram to take over.
Hi, Kapil. Thank you so much for this insightful and informative session on the use of Blender.
If there are any questions, you guys can.
Sure. Yeah, very true. We can take a few minutes here. We are keeping an eye on the YouTube chat. If people have any questions that they need answers for, feel free to put them here. Um, in the meantime, I would like to tell our viewers that, like, if you want to attend insightful masterclass sessions like the one you attended today. Uh, and if you want to continue attending them in future, we invite you to become a member of our EdTech Society, and the link for that is provided in the chat in the description and also in the chat box. Uh, I would also like to mention what Dr. Birju was talking in the beginning of the session. So, EdTech Society is planning to host a academic conference in upcoming months, and the details for which will be shared soon with all of you. And I would like you to know that for our members, they will have the privilege to register for this conference at discounted prices. So if you want to take advantage of this opportunity, please again visit the link in our description box below and become a member. So that was about the upcoming academic conference being hosted by the EdTech Society. So I can see,
Yeah,
yes, Kapil, I'll wait
yeah.
for you to.
I'll pick up a couple
Sure,
of questions that I
sure.
could see here. Uh, I can see how can we create human model. So for human model or character modeling, definitely you use the some box modeling technique, and as well as you can do a lot of sculpting, and there are a lot of tutorials available, and definitely you can create a character modeling in human faces. Then is it possible to create accurate face model of a face? Uh, yes, you can create a model of a face, but the accuracy will depend on the efforts that you'll be putting into. So not exactly, but you will be able to create a human like faces. And Aman is saying no discussion about animation. Definitely, Aman, I just introduced the animation part of it because the more emphasis I wanted to give on the 3D modeling, because once you get familiar with the interface and basics of modeling, the animation is the next part of it. Yeah, so we will discuss it that in the workshop also. Yeah. Yes, Ram, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I think that's all the questions for today. And I can see someone is asking, can they join next session? So, like I said a minute ago, that if you want to attend such insightful sessions in the future, please make sure to join our EdTech Society. The link for that is provided in the description box below. And as you can see on the screen, we have also shared our contact details. You can reach out to us via mail and via text message also. And we have also shared the link for register for getting the certificate of participation. So you can fill out the form given in the chat box and receive your letter of participation for today's session. So with that, I would like to close this session. Thank you, Kapil, for hosting this wonderful session for us. And I thank all of my dear viewers for joining us today. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Yeah.